Richard Seltzer. I'd like to share with you my favorite book, The Wizard of Oz, which I self-published 46 years ago. I'm going to read to you the new, improved, and expanded edition, which I just finished writing and which is not in print. I'll make a separate video for each chapter. The original edition had illustrations by Christin Couture. I'll show you some of those pictures at the end of each video. Here's the cover, designed by my old college roommate, Dave Gleason. Chapter 1, The Humbug. The day after yesterday, the fire of enchantment burnt out. And children, and even grown-ups, found nothing new in the world, nothing worth seeing or doing or bothering about, nothing except machines. There was no magic left, except in a classroom in Winthrop, Massachusetts, where a pair of talking fish, Mrs. O'Rourke and Mr. Sherman, lived in a fishbowl. Their school was near the airport across the harbor from Boston. The sound of planes overhead was loud everywhere but in the basement, where two classes had the good luck to be assigned. The teachers, Miss Osborne and Miss Shelby, were friends and had removed the partitions so the classes could be together. It was an extraordinarily bright and creative set of kids and teachers. The principal was so proud of them that he suspended normal rules so they could go on field trips whenever the weather and the mood were right. It was as a field trip that the quest began that took them to Oz and to Ohm to bring back enchantment to the world. It all began one morning when Mrs. O'Rourke got out of bed, stretched her fins, and shouted, "Good morning, everybody," as she always did on school days. But this time, no one answered. So she wiggled to the front of the fishbowl and pressed her eyes against the glass. The whole class was there. Eugene and Mark and Linda S. and Linda C. and Cindy and Donnie and Peter and Gaynell and Kathy. But no one was smiling or laughing or playing. They all looked blank and bored and disenchanted. So Mrs. O'Rourke wiggled to the other end of the fishbowl, where Mr. Sherman lived. Mr. Sherman knew most everything. He used to be a teacher until he decided he wanted to be a fish, and then he knew how to make himself a fish, which not many people, even teachers, know how to do. Mr. Sherman said, "It's the humbug." "The humbug?" asked Mrs. O'Rourke. "Yes, the humbug. You may think that noise in the sky is airplanes, but no, that's the humbug. He's been flying around, beating on his humdrum and disenchanting everybody. I was afraid we'd start to hear him down here. It was just a matter of time." "But where can we go? What can we do?" "Calm down now, Mrs. O'Rourke, calm down." Mr. Sherman could just imagine what it would be like living in a fishbowl with Mrs. O'Rourke if she didn't have anybody to talk to but him. So he tried hard to think of a way to break the disenchantment. Mrs. O'Rourke calmed down and cheered up and calmed down, up, down, like on a seesaw, only she wasn't at sea, just in a fishbowl, waiting for Mr. Sherman to think of how to get the world back to its usual enchanted self. "The only way to break the disenchantment," he told her, "is to make the humbug change his tune, but only the Wizard of Oz can make him do that." "The lizard?" "Many stories and books and movies tell about the Wizard of Oz and his Emerald City. In those stories, that city isn't really emerald. The wizard makes everyone wear glasses with green lenses that make everything look green, but he's just an ordinary person who pretends to be magic. That story was written by the humbug. The humbug doesn't want people to know about the lizard and magic. He wants everyone to think that enchantment is make-believe. He named his story The Wizard of Oz and made it a very good story so people would confuse it with a lizard and forget there ever was a lizard." "But who's the Wizard of Oz?" "A magical creature who lives in the green, green grass of Ohm." "Ohm?" "Yes, Ohm is the nicest part of Oz, with lakes and trees and lots of grass to roll in." "How can we get there?" asked Mrs. O'Rourke. "The best way is in a little green VW." Mrs. O'Rourke remembered that Miss Osborne had a little green VW, but before she could say that, she saw Eugene, the tallest of the kids, standing next to the fishbowl. "Can I help?" Eugene asked. "Holy mackerel!" exclaimed Mrs. O'Rourke. "Mr. Sherman," she asked, I thought you said the children are disenchanted." Mr. Sherman explained. Down here in the basement, the humbug isn't as loud as he is in the rest of the school, so they don't hear him as much, and they're not anywhere near as disenchanted as everyone else. Eugene, at least, is still enchanted enough to hear talking fish. Just then, they heard a dull humming noise through the windows, then faint words repeated over and over again. Humdrum humbug, beating on his humdrum. Humdrum humbug, beating on his humdrum. Quick, Eugene, shouted Mr. Sherman, put cotton in your ears and tell everyone else to put cotton in theirs. Maybe it's not too late. You kids may still be enchanted enough to get to Oz and roll through the green, green grass of home and find the lizard and get him to change the humbug's tune. The next chapter, which I'll do in a separate video, is going to be called The Redcoats. And I'd like to show you just a few of the illustrations by Christin Couture from the first edition. I hope this is clear to you. That's the humdrum humbug beating on his humdrum. And a few pages later, we've got, this is Mr. Sherman and Mrs. O'Rourke in their fishbowl. Okay. If you enjoyed this, please watch the rest of the story. I'm going to make a separate video of each of the 27 chapters. Feedback welcome. My name again is Richard Seltzer, as in Alka-Seltzer. My email is seltzer@seltzerbooks.com. All Things That Matter Press recently published 3 other novels of mine, Parallel Lives, Beyond the Fourth Door, and Nevermind. You can find all those at Amazon as paperbacks and as ebooks. They can be read in any order. They're independent stories with overlapping theme and styles. Each presents a different view of reality, a different way of trying to understand the mysteries of life.